This meeting is being recorded.
All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our first Better Brains for Babies webinar of 2022. I'm excited about this, and I'm excited to have this opportunity. I'm excited to get to introduce Brionnea Williams-McClary. I've known Brionnea for quite some time now. Kind of helped her officiated her wedding and a few little things like that. So she's an important person to me, and she has a relatively new position with CDA that she's going to tell you more about. And I'm excited to hear a little more about what she's doing. So Brionnea, I am going to continue to admit folks, but I'm going to hand the mic over to you. I'm going to turn off my camera for now so I'm not distracting, and I'll turn it back on as we get to the end, but I'll also monitor chat for you. So welcome. We're glad you're here. Thank you for speaking with us.
Hello. I am happy to be here. I am looking through and the participants to see if I see some names that I recognize. And so, of course, I want to first say thank you to Dr. Diane Bales and also my officiant at my wedding. And, I'm very happy to be here for a few reasons. But when I saw her email, I was like, it's Diane. And so my husband actually likes to joke about how much fun Diane had at our wedding, because she had told us she was going to not stay. She had some things to do. She stayed the entire time. She had a good time. She partied. And I just wanted to, thank her for being the wonderful person that she is. And honestly, what brings me here to this spot, being here in the webinar, is my engagement. I actually am a Better Brains for Babies trainer, like I'm assuming most of you on this call. And I was trained so many years ago. And the great thing about being with you all is you're already aware, right? I don't have to teach you about the brain development and firing synapses and the importance of our infant and toddlers. And I want to say, first of all, I want to say welcome to our special guest. I see someone's pup in the background, and I love that he or she is completely engaged. I'm giving you really good eye contact. I'm loving it. So thank you. It's to the Bramlets. I also see, I see at least one person in here who has actually trained me, and I think it's Miss Sheila Thompson. I'm really happy to be here. I think I saw, who else is in here? I saw actually a former family support worker who used to help me and my family out. And I'm just gonna jump in, right? So I am here because I'm here to talk to you about Better Brains for Babies, but also in a way that connects the Council for Professional Recognition to the CDA. And so most of you all are familiar with what the CDA is, right? It's the actual credential that a person can receive in order to further their education. It's the best first step for being a teacher. So the Council for Professional Recognition is the actual name of the organization that awards, administers the CDA. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about the CDA, what the CDA process is, what the updates are, new initiatives, including my role at the Council as the Director of Public Policy, which is a first of its kind. If you're familiar with the CDA and the Council, then you probably are also familiar with NACI. And at the beginning of the Council, so many years ago, before I was born, the people, the great minds that designed the Council were actually the beginning of other organizations. And so NACI was one of those organizations. There was also the Children's Defense Fund. And the point of me telling you this information is so that you know historically, NACI, the Children's Defense Fund, older established organizations led the charge for what policy would look like. And that was approximately 45, 50 years ago. Well, in the past, 25, 10 years, and of course, due to the pandemic recently, everybody wants to talk about policy. And of course, we're all experiencing across the country and in other countries a shortage of teachers. So what the council is doing is thinking more broadly about not allowing, or rather not relying on other organizations to talk about the council, the CDA, and also teachers. And so that we want to be here for teachers, for credentialing teachers, and of course for serving children. So this webinar is about really what lies ahead for the CDA, but what that means really for teachers, what it means for infants and toddlers, obviously for brain development, and what that means for policy. And so that's really how we come to be in this moment. I also want to recognize that there are some people who may be in the waiting room, and you will be admitted. And also I want to say that if you find yourself wanting to chat, we are monitoring the chat, and we want you to talk to me. I want this to be like it would be if we were in person. And I remember back in the day when I became a Better Brain for Babies trainer, when I took the TOT, everything happened obviously in person, face to face. And so I like to believe that I was set up to be the kind of trainer that would like work the room and make sure we had everything that she needed and wanted. And so one of my favorite trainers and good friends is Shanicia. Her name is Shanicia Nickerson now, but it used to be Roberson, and she was a powerhouse in training. And this is important because I was taught by Shanicia to always come to a training prepared to engage you, to engage the audience, and to engage myself. And that meant you have to basically take care of yourself and take care of your audience. So I want you to, if you have not done so, get your coffee and your water and whatever else you want to get. But while you're getting those things, or if you've not done those things, I need you at some point in the next maybe 10 minutes to find in your house something that's going to help you today. And I'm going to show you what you could use if you don't have anything. So what I want you to have is one of these things. You only need one of these things. Is probably this is a lint roller. It doesn't have to be with a tape on. You need a lint roller, and it doesn't have to be a lint roller. I'm going to give you like 5 options. Either a lint roller, the one that's in my hand, or, you know, a paintbrush. The small one would be great, but if you need to, you can use the big one. It doesn't need to be paint on there. It could be clean or dry. This one's really old. You need either a paintbrush roller, large one, small one, or lint roller. You could, if you needed to, use your pepper or salt dispenser. Obviously, if you're using the salt, it's going to get everywhere, so I would say pepper. What you're trying to get is something that's going to allow you to roll on your body, right? It would be easy for something like your lint roller, your paint holder. You could use a wine bottle. Hopefully it's an empty wine bottle because it's a little too early, but I need you, it could be, mine is for decoration, right? This is actually for my wedding. And you just need to be able to roll something on your body. It could be a water bottle, but it probably needs to be a hard water bottle. What else could it be? Oh, it could even be, which is kind of heavy, it could be this thing that you use, the roller for rolling out biscuits or whatever you use it for. So you have time while we're talking, while we're doing the introduction, to go in your house and find any of these items. We'll use them later. You only need one, but we'll talk about it later. So I'll give you some instructions. As a trainer, I would have brought all these things to you, but we're not in person, so you're gonna have to use things in your house. If we were in person, I would have baskets with goodies inside. There would be candy, there would be pictures, there would be cameras, there would be little things for you to play with, things for you to shake with your hand, little finger puppets. And so we're not in person, so I'm going to rely on you to have whatever you need, fidget spinner, whatever basket. And that is you taking care of yourself, but also me helping you take care of yourself in this space. let's see. I want to move to the chat, and because I want to make sure that we are thinking, we are engaging our brain, and I want you to know that, it's really important for us to take care of ourselves in this time, in this pandemic, but also for us to think about what that means for, obviously, the babies, the children, the infants and toddlers, either that we are serving directly, or that your teachers are serving, or that your friends are serving, even if you are a home visitor, that when you're seeing the babies, whether or not you can touch the babies. And so brain development is about always being engaged, but this presentation is mostly about how the CDA is poised to help with brain development, right? And how the CDA, the council, is going to be engaging in the future. And so I want to speak a little bit now about my role at the council. My role, I thought I went ahead. Uh-oh, I think I'm having, there we go. It's just a little slow, a little delayed. So I'm the director of public policy. I'm the first director of public policy for the council. And I'm really excited to be in this role. I sit in the division of the Office of the CEO. So I report directly to the CEO. We speak regularly. He actually called me before I joined the meeting. And so with that being said, we are partnering. I am, of course, here to serve the council. We are partnering to craft a policy agenda for the council. And so that means that the council itself is really wanting to make sure that the world knows, because we are an international organization, that the council is poised to serve the early childhood field and to, of course, administer the national CDA credential, and to make sure that everybody knows that it's portable, obviously, and that is the best first step. It also can be a side step. And by side step, I mean, although traditionally people who go for the CDA choose the CDA because either they do not want to or do not feel confident in or have the time to engage in a traditional associate degree, 4-year degree program. Although the CDA is seen as a best first step, it can be a side step. By side step, I mean, if you had a career in another life, in your previous life, or you want to start another career, you can actually use the CDA to get you the knowledge, to bring your knowledge level of ECE, early childhood education, up to a certain point. And that's important because it is possible, and it has happened to a lot of people that I know of, that you have a background in something else, business, nursing, but you don't have the knowledge in early childhood education. And yes, you can go to conferences and you can take classes here or there, but the credential itself is poised to, of course, get you clock hours, 120 clock hours, performed by an instructor of your choice, at your agency of your choice, the organization of your choice. But there's also the requisite face-to-face in-time hours in a classroom or in a home visiting program, or in a family child care program. And that's important because the credential isn't just education, it's practical experience, right? So that means that you could be a retired teacher or a retired nurse and decide to get some other information and education, but you must do the hours in order to get the credential inside a program with a program. And that's important because the council wants you to know that we're always working together with either degree track programs at community colleges, technical colleges, and even state institutions to make sure that there's a CDA articulation agreement, so that if you want to get a degree in ECE, you can still do that, and your CDA will count towards that, right? So part of being the director of public policy is saying, hey, most people know that the CDA is a way to receive knowledge, to become an early childhood education teacher. But the CDA is also something that you can use to leverage yourself, to up your game if you did not have training in a certain area. There are many people, some even directors, who do not have ECE 4-year degrees. Maybe their ECE degree was in social services or was in human resources, which are really great degrees to have. You are a director of a program. Sometimes, though, the knowledge that you need in order to serve children takes more than a class or a conference or a webinar. It takes some time in a program. And so the CDA is there to help you do that. The CDA and the council is interested in making sure that at this time, the CDA competency standards are in line with federal and state qualifications. And we are poised to make sure that as people are leaving the workforce, you know, this is the great resignation or the great realization, however you want to say it, right? That people are thinking about what they're going to do with their lives differently. And some people have decided they want to leave the field, and that's okay. Some people have said, I need to leave the field because I'm not appreciated, and that may be true. And some people have decided that I want to do something else with what I've been given, the talents I have, and that's fine. As people are leaving the field, the council is poised to help other people into the field. And so that's why I say sidestep. Although the council, the CDA, is poised to be your first step, a first step, it can be a sidestep. You can come back to it. The council will be here for you. So one of the other big things that we are going to be doing at the council in my role is engaging with our network of CDAs across the country. We have now an active CDA alumni network because there are over 1,500 people who are actually engaged right now with us to do work with us, but who have gone on. They've gone on to get other degrees. They have owned businesses. They're now teaching, or they are working in state institutions. They're working for the state of Georgia. They're working for the state of Hawaii. But they want to continue to engage the world and their friends and businesses about early childhood education. So we are going to be working with all of the early childhood education workforce, saying that even if you don't have a CDA, maybe you want to support someone to get a CDA. Maybe you want to support a business. And these partnerships are happening with local governments, they're happening with big business. And sometimes we find out at the council in a news article that someone, a big bank, like a Chase or a Goldman Sachs, has given an organization or a city or a state a few $1 million to educate and make sure that people are willing and ready to enter the field to receive a CDA. And so our policy, the council's policy, is going to obviously always be focused on teachers. But that means that we're focused on credentialing teachers and making sure this teaching environment is something teachers want to actually be in. And that means speaking to some of the things that are happening in teachers' lives, right? Speaking to equity, speaking to pay. It's saying that there are overwhelming amount of women who are in ECE, and most of the people who serve babies, even when there are men in preschool programs, the men are generally in preschool, serving 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. They're generally not in infant toddler classrooms. So what you have is a field that is embedded either naturally or due to socioeconomic factors of being primarily staffed by women, and women aren't paid the same rate. You know, we are making about 75 cents on a dollar. If you're a woman of color, it could be 67 cents on it as of a dollar in comparison to men. And so, not to make this a man versus woman type argument, but that the council and the policy that the council will be talking about is pay equity, it's health equity, it's making sure we don't continue to enforce gender notions in a way that says women must or should be taking care of children, and that we aren't going to pay those women. We are going to pay those women where they should be paid, but that we won't allow that part of the discussion to be left out. We're going to talk about race and class and sex, and we're going to talk about orientation, and we're going to talk about economy. And so the council is stepping out there in the world to say, hey, we're here to credential teachers, and in credentialing those teachers, we're going to support them in their path. So that's how I came to be at the council, and I'm really, really happy to be at the council doing this work. I'm coming by way of federal government. I'm coming by way of state nonprofit, GACI. I'm coming by way of United Way. And so I think that I get to be with the council in this moment where the world is changing, and the council is here for it. We're here for the changes. So what lies ahead? Some of the other new initiatives of the council, besides having a public policy director for the first time in 45 years, is making sure that the CDA is more visible. So we are in the process of and have been partnering now with high schools across the country to get the CDA in the high school, right? So that students are coming out of high school, whether they are a senior or a junior, according to state law, you can be an after-school teacher. You can probably be a associate teacher, depending on your age. Most states and cities allow 16-year-olds to work. And so that the council is going to be there to say that a student, a child, a minor can receive a CDA in high school, and we have a CDA in high school product for that purpose. We are regularly doing live updates. We have reimagined the CDA. We are investing in a special instructor type certificate where we will make sure that instructors are appropriate and are giving the kind of instruction that is the best and the highest quality. And so that we aren't going to be regulating our instructors, mind you, but that the council wants to make sure that, along with the time changing, that the way that we give the CDA and the way we prepare teachers is in line with competency standards and with the high quality that's necessary to be in the room with our children and with babies, right? We just finished our industry program that allowed anybody who had a CDA over the past 2 years that had expired to come back in. That just ended December 31st, 2021. We have a new website, we have new resources, we have books, we have pamphlets, we have reissued the essentials. So there's a lot going on, and we're going to be more present. I think I am scheduled with Dr. Moore, our CEO, and other VPs at the council to go someplace every month to make sure that the CDA and the council is there for you and that you're connecting with us. If you are familiar with the CDA, and I'm just saying it over and over again, the CDA is the most widely recognized credential in early childhood education. It's a stepping stone. We have an assessment process, there's competency standards, and being awarded the CDA means the candidate is qualified to be a lead teacher in the classroom. What that means, especially for babies, is that that teacher is not there to just provide childcare. That teacher is not a babysitter. The teacher is there to educate and to use standards, developing appropriate practices, to use all of the knowledge that they've acquired while getting the CDA in order to instruct children. Of course, you are aware that it's a national, technically international credential. It's available in Puerto Rico, Panama, UAE, China, Egypt, and Ghana, and we've translated into approximately 12 languages. We are workforce ready. So if you are looking for teachers, the council is a place where you possibly could find your teachers, because we're going to make sure that teachers are trained and administer the credentials to do so. So I'm not going to talk about all the products in depth. What I want to talk to you, though, is about what is neurodiversity, right? And so this is your opportunity now to talk back with me in the chat. So I want to see in the chat, maybe room, what word comes to your mind when someone says, oh, neurodiversity? Have you even heard the word neurodiversity? What comes to mind? So, and let's see, I'm looking for you. I know you're gonna have to type, so you may need like 30 seconds to type. I'm asking you about what you know about neurodiversity, what you want to know more about neurodiversity, and why are we even talking about neurodiversity?
First comment, Brionnea, is I haven't heard that word used. What comes to mind? Differing brain. I think it relates to the brain. I haven't heard this used before. So this may be a term that's unfamiliar. Learning disabilities, autism, mental health differences, different way of learning or processing. Hadn't heard of it, but what comes to mind is learning differently, different ways of thinking and learning. I'm thinking about, I have one neurotypical child in my home of 4 children. Never heard of it. So I think this is an unfamiliar term to a lot of people.
Yay, that's okay. So that's great, because that means that I'm not preaching to the choir, and we get to talk about, you know, quote unquote, the words that, you know, I can say I don't like to use them, but words I don't use anymore, are words like what's normal, what's a normal brain, right? Or saying, you know, that person is acting weird, that something's wrong. And so neurodiversity is about thinking about how we talk about brain, right? How we talk about brain development, and how that over time, what we're supposed to do is evolve. Usually it takes a very long time. Evolution is hundreds of years in the making. And then one train of thought is that neurodiversity is an aspect of evolution. It is our brains evolving, but that it doesn't happen overnight, right? And what happens with neurodiversity is we experience, as humans, neurodiversity at birth and during development. And so there's a growing push to focus on our brain differences, right? And if we're focusing on our brain differences, we're saying that brains are different. Brains should be different. We're different, right? Even twins are different. And so that brings me to my favorite topic in the world. Not really, it's not my favorite topic in the world. My favorite topic in the world is cheese. But in terms of this conversation, my favorite topic in the world are how two people can be born at the same time, can be twins, can be literally birthed together, living in the same sex together, and to be two different people. And so with that being said, I like to bring forth the most, I think, adorable picture ever in the world. And this picture of my twins. Can you see them, my babies? This one, they're babies. They're twins, and they're completely two different people, two different brains. And they are actually 6 years old now. But the point of talking about brain development is that I can say quite honestly that they are two different people with two different types of brains, and they're also atypical. They are on the autism spectrum. And what makes them different is not them being on the spectrum, but that what makes them different is that everybody's different. Neurodiversity is about focusing on how brains see things differently. And it doesn't have to be a disability or an ability or a difference, but there are many brains that think differently. What we are charged with doing as early child educators and as people who are qualified in better brains for babies, technology, terminology, what that means as being an educator, is how do we think about diversity? A word that we use to talk about usually race, sometimes gender and sex. How do we think about diversity in brain development? And taking it a step further, another level, let's dial this a level down deeper. As early childhood educators, whether we are in family support work roles, are in director roles, are in adult education roles, when we are thinking and training and actually caring for babies, are we appreciating the fact that their brains are in development and that they are going to develop differently? And so the challenge is not just in humanizing or saying, oh, I value that, I know that. Saying it and knowing it and even feeling it is totally easy. Practicing it in the classroom as a director or a teacher is hard. Some teachers struggle with children, babies, that do not behave or act the same way other babies or children in their care act. And typically, those children, those babies, are the ones that you don't want to hold as much. You know, Sometimes Susan cries a whole lot and she screams when you touch her, and you don't want to be accused of being abusive or harming Susan. Susan probably has a sensory issue. Maybe it hurts when she's touched. It doesn't feel good. It's not pleasant. And so children, babies, are treated differently when they're not nice, when they're loud, when they're cranky, when they're always throwing up, or when they cannot tolerate to be touched or too much light or too much anything. And so what happens is that the way that we see babies, the way that we think about babies, we think about, oh, they're cute, they need care, we want to protect them, and we're going to educate them too. But when they are not the kind of babies that we are accustomed to, and there is a difference in how they react to us as teachers, we don't love it, right? We love our job. We definitely like to get paid from our jobs, but we aren't wanting to, we're not drawn to difficult children or children who act differently.
Brionnea, we've got a couple comments in the chat. One person said, I always thought this with colicky babies in childcare. And then somebody else says it's important that this is recognized because my son may be identified with having Asperger's. However, I have had childcare teachers Google the word and automatically associate what they've read with my child. He does not identify or show the same behavior.
So this is important. That last comment resonates with me because when children don't identify with the definition that has been, I guess, ascribed to their potential diagnosis, teachers struggle, right? You know, I have 3 children, right? I have the twins and I have my oldest daughter. And so they are all completely different. And the twins, though, are like, I could do a whole research study on how their differences affect each other as twins, and how, because they're twins and because they literally grew in my stomach at the same time, they don't act like typical children on the autism spectrum. So autism is, for example, a behavioral social disorder. It's a diagnosis, and that social diagnosis really is about how their brain see the world and how they do or do not want to socialize because of it. Now, because there's 2 of them, they can't really avoid socializing, right? And so they end up being more social than the typical person on the spectrum. So quite often, they actually, you know, get treated a certain way because people don't believe they're on the spectrum. And I was like, well, I have the paperwork and the bills to prove it, right? You know, you can, I mean, they are who they are. But when a person doesn't fit into our own bubble, we don't treat them the way that they should be treated. And I've only become more interested in brain neurodiversity as I've gotten older. Not because I'm a blurred, I mean, I am, I'm a Black nerd, I'll say it, but because I'm concerned about what's going to happen to them in the future. I'm concerned about their social differences and how the way that their brain reacts may get them killed. And that's my reality, right? And so what I think about is, what if, as teachers, as educators, as director of policies or director of child care programs, we start to think differently about brain development, and we start to almost assume that every brain is different, because it is, and that every baby is going to act differently, and whether or not a child is lovable or cute, they receive the ultimate in early childhood education. And it's like, oh, that's really easy to say. Well, why wouldn't you treat 2 babies the same? And I'm saying, we don't want you to treat them the same because you can't treat them the same. So along with brains being diverse, and neurodiversity means that there's a diversity in brain development, there has to be a diversity in the way that we teach the baby. It has to be diversity in how we comes to the classroom. And although every program will say they are inclusive and they have an inclusive curriculum, every teacher is not teaching each child differently. So there's a difference between an individualized curriculum and actually performing a different type of teaching on with a child, with a baby. And so, and honestly, babies aren't always fun. Sometimes you don't know what they're thinking. You don't know what they're thinking, and you really aren't in their brain. And so it's like you have to almost assume that every baby that you're touching could possibly, potentially be neurodiverse. And how does that change how you think about that child? But how does that change how you perform your regular classroom duties? Right?
Brionnea, another questions come up in the chat.
Okay, I'm ready.
Do you think some kids with this concern are labeled as having behavioral problems?
Absolutely. I mean, so I say I want to talk about brain development appropriately to the extent that brain development in babies looks different than brain development, obviously, in children who are over the age of 3. And over the age of 3, particularly over the age of 1 even, that's when you can actually see the behaviors, or rather, that child is old enough to actually exhibit behaviors. That behavior did not all of a sudden occur when that child turned the magical number of 1 or 2. That brain was developing when it was developing, and that behavior was always going to be there, right? So other than, obviously trauma and abuse, your brain, it develops the way it develops. And sometimes you find out whatever you find out, but if you can't really see the physical aspects of it really until they're older. So yes, I absolutely know that brain development is usually something we talk about only when we're talking about cognitive functioning. But when you're talking about the social and emotional competence of children and the positive guidance and the behavior aspects, it's really how that child is acting out according to their social environment. And that's when we need to talk about really cognitive issues, whether they are someone developing on the appropriate milestone, using the appropriate checklist. What does that mean for their social behavior? Does the social behavior the social behavior connect with what you're doing that touches their cognitive development? And so then we have to start blending and thinking not about the competencies as being separate, like we write about them separately. Even the CDA Competency Standards book and how you write your portfolio and turn it into your instructor. We write each competency as a thing that happens by itself. And I am not saying the CDA Council is going to not do it that way, because we have to obviously be able to demonstrate learning, so that when you're teaching in the classroom, you're not teaching the cognitive, the social competence, the social emotional development appropriate practices. You're not teaching them separately. You're not saying, hey, over on this table, we're going to do cognitive activities. And at this table, you can actually behave a certain way. And over here, I'm going to teach you about developing appropriate practices. In the classroom, we're doing all those things at the same time, right? And so you have to think about your teaching practice. Even, of course, when changing babies, like literally on the diapering table, all teachers know that diapering for babies is an educational activity. There's all these things that happen during diapering, and you are engaging and you're changing and you're washing your hands 2,500 times, and you're also, singing at the time, you're giving that eye contact. It's probably the first time that you actually get to really assess that child's complete self is on the changing table. That is an educational moment for a baby. It can be an educational moment for a toddler if you're, teaching them how to toilet train. But in an infant toddler classroom, when teaching babies, you do development appropriate at the moments where it would normally be rest, or when it's transition time in a preschool classroom. In a baby classroom, diapering, what else? Feeding, sleeping are the most important parts of a child's development and the most critical. And I say the most critical because like when a child is sleeping, a baby is sleeping, it is, when I was an infant toddler teacher, the scariest time. And I'm saying scary for me. I was scary for me because I'm thinking, what is happening right now during nap time? Is this child turning over? Do they have their needs? Like, you have to think differently about babies. Now, when you're in a preschool classroom and those children go to sleep, you're like, "Ooh, thank you, Jesus, I'm about to get my break." But you think differently about babies when they're sleeping, or you should be, hopefully, right? You're thinking about, what can I do to change, to trigger, to reach their development? What can I do to make sure that I'm giving them my best and not just allowing them to sleep? Also checking on them. You should be obviously checking a baby when they're sleeping. I think I think some centers change the rule, but like every 15 minutes, checking, make sure, that there's no rolling over, there's no obstruction, so that the times in an infant toddler classroom that are the busiest times, and in my opinion, the scariest times, are going outside and play around, because there is going to be an incident report, and somebody's going to fall, because toddlers fall. They toddle and they fall down, and then they fall down on top of each other, and then they try to bite because they can't talk. So infant toddlers, I think infant toddler development, obviously, and brain development is the most interesting part about teaching. I was never bored a single day in infant toddler classroom. I went home and I was so tired because I was always thinking, who is about to do what to whom? Who has seen someone's food? Who am I going to pry apart? Babies are fun, but they are tiresome. Their brains are working 100 times a minute. But that also means that when the brains develop differently, and when we see them thinking and processing differently, we start to make assumptions. When a child is not as busy as another child, or a child is not as active as another child, we think delay. We think they're not meeting their milestones. We think there's a diagnosis, and there may be a diagnosis, and there may be what we call an educational delay. However, those are actually moments instead where hopefully in the future, we won't say, "Oh my goodness, and this may be a delay or diagnosis." We may say, "Oh my gosh, this is neurodiversity." So you're changing your language, you're changing your thought pattern, you're changing how you think about babies, not to name the behavior as behavior. You're changing your mind to think about that activity as neurodiversity.
We've got a couple more comments, Brionnea.
Okay.
Teachers definitely need support in this area. I've heard from so many teachers that they only had one course in their ECE that gave general knowledge about children with differing abilities, but no direct support on how to teach them and how to adjust for those differences. And then another comment, yes, teachers need more support in this area, and universities are adding courses to address this issue toward equipping teaching to better service young learners. And then a third comment was, it reminds me of the importance of taking strengths-based approach to supporting children aligned with their evolving neurodiversity.
I think you all are on the right page. I think that what you're thinking about, what you're saying out loud, is what we're seeing. And I want you to know that you're in a really great space right now to have this conversation and this moment of how you're going to think differently and teach your teachers to think differently, because neurodiversity isn't about learning all of the disabilities, quote unquote, or different instruction. Neurodiversity is about recognizing, appreciating, and valuing that brain differences not only exist, but that they should exist. That we don't see it as a deficit anymore, and as this is something I'm going to have to do more of. This is something I'm going to have to just do differently. So the reason why I'm coming back to the council, one, because I think it's 10:50, right? We're running up on the end of time. I want to talk to you about how the council can help you with your infant toddler information, your infant toddler credential. So what happens for most people is that if they get a CDA, they get their CDA in a center-based setting, although obviously it can be home visiting and it can be family child care. But a majority of the people who receive a credential want to get the credential in a preschool setting. They do it intentionally, they do it strategically. I did it. I was teaching in an infantile classroom, I was infantile lead. I got my CDA in preschool setting because I wanted to move on to preschool. And that's fine. What I'm saying to you is that you can hold more than one CDA credential. Dr. Moore, the CEO of the council, he has 2 CDAs. When he got them, he was way younger before he got his bachelor's degree or his PhD years and years ago. He was a family child care provider. So he has a family child care CDA, and he also has a preschool-based CDA. And so I only had the preschool CDA. However, what I could have done, had someone told me, was have gotten a specialization in infant toddler, right? I could have also, and you can still do this, you can also specialize in special needs. And what the council does is that they say, we will meet you where you're at. If you had a program and your program needs or wants to support you, or you want to support yourself in learning more about special education, you can design your CDA specialization for special needs because we offer it the way that you need it to. If your center needs to grow in that area, the CDA candidate can be the person that helps that center grow, right? Sometimes we rely too much on the program that we're at to show us what to do, to tell us what to do. Sometimes we have to get it ourselves. And yes, I would like to believe that every child care center, every family child care home has a plan. They should have a plan if they have Head Start money or child care money, but we're not going to talk about federal rules. You should have a plan for professional development. Every teacher should, and every program should, because the state requires it to, your program to receive federal funding. What that means is, though, that you're always getting continuing education. So whether you want to put that money into a CDA or put it into a private trainer, that is your choice. There are plenty of trainers in Georgia, Georgia, across the country. They will train you. So where you get your training at, I don't particularly care. You can get it at the council. I mean, you can get it through Pro Solutions. You can get it hybrid. The point is that you have to get it. You should get it. You have to always be evolving. You have to always be trying to learn. And you ask your employer to help you do that. And if your employer can't help you do that, you have 2 options. Technically 3. You can find another employer. This is the teacher's workforce. Teachers, everybody wants a teacher. You want to find them a job, that is totally your choice. Or you can ask your director to support you, and they probably will support you. Or you can pay for it yourself and get a tax credit. Sometimes you have to invest in yourself. And so that means that you have to think about what happens next. What can I do next? How do I change my life? So if I change my life, I'm going to change the lives of the babies and children I serve. That's it. That's the solution. But I'm also saying that you have to be just engaged in how you move forward. I know that most programs have internal trainers or external trainers. Everybody wants their center to grow to the extent that they don't want any report to the state about a potential abuse or potential allegation or an ADA violation. So if you are appropriate and your workplace is appropriate, you will be able to get professional development. I honestly do believe that. We at the council have products and resources. I think you will be able to, I think at the end of my presentation, here's a link. There's a link to access the book. It's a handbook for high school. And I do believe that high school pathways book for the CDA is at no cost. So you can definitely take this link to access the book online. I think there's also a link for some of the people at the council. You'll see some of the things that have happened recently. You may recognize some of these people. We do council live episodes where we're sharing trending topics like neurodiversity, issues in the field. You can learn more about brain development and anyone else that is speaking with us, equity issues. We want you to know that your feedback is important. If you want to talk about the credentialing process, if you would like to give us more insight, feedback, please reach out. We have a customer service vendor. We actually pay someone to take all of your complaints or issues and to tell us about them so we can address them. So I want you to think about how you are going to reimagine brain development and neurodiversity, right? That's what you should leave with, absolutely. You should also leave with thoughts about how to take care of yourself, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And I want to spend this last 5 minutes helping you to energize you. And it's the beginning of the day still, technically. So we have 5 minutes left.
Brionnea, before you go, do you want me to share a couple more comments from the chat?
Oh, I'm not leaving yet, but yes, I want to. Yes,
I mean, before we move on to the next thing.
Yes, start sharing comments. I'm here.
Okay. As a teacher, it definitely takes outside learning to be able to support students who are different, was one comment. I really like the way you said brain diversity. I've worked with teens with autism, and we had a young male who could fix computer problems faster than IT could get to that office to check the computer. Another comment, one goal is for teachers to complete more observations and assessments throughout the year to watch the development of each child. Early intervention is essential when teachers see something different or an atypical development in a child. We are world-changing teachers for our children. And then somebody asks, do teachers get an increase in payment when they get their specializations and their certification?
The last question is the most interesting. I would like to know, does your program give you extra payment when you receive a specialization? I have worked when I worked for an academy, I did receive extra money when I received my CDA and any additional certification. And I know if you are in the state of Georgia, Pro Solutions, Care Solutions used to be responsible for the extra amount of money that was given out, awarded based upon getting next levels. Some programs pay based on specialties, but generally when the program pays you for your specialty, they're paying you when you walk in the door with it. You may need to become, teachers need to become more savvy in how we negotiate for pay at the center level, right? And women in particular almost never negotiate, ever. Sometimes because we don't want to be argumentative, we don't want to lose opportunity. And so, there are appropriate ways to ask for pay increases. And it may be in your best interest to approach your director about a potential pay increase if you go out and do certain things. Like I said, this market, like right now, this is the seller's market for buying a house, and this is a teacher's market for starting a job or maintaining a job. Teachers are in high demand. There are people talking about needing teachers everywhere. And honestly, you're more marketable with the more education specializations. So you may need to invest in yourself on the front end so that you can make yourself more marketable on the back end. So that's the answer to my question. I think I put this to 10:59. We only have 1 minute left. So I want to make sure that you pick up your roller, your lint roller, or your wine bottle. And I would prefer the lint roller or even your paintbrush roller, because you need to take care of yourself. Obviously, you're not going to paint yourself. What you're going to do is give yourself some light massage. It's not massage envy. It's not going to be the $120 massage, but you can take your massage roller and you're just going to rub it on your arm, just giving yourself a little gentle massage. You can put it on your back, give yourself some good, feel good. It's going to help you if you're applying deep pressure. That's good. If you're applying light pressure, even if you can't really feel it working, if it's doing surface level working, removing your lymphatic system, you're getting out toxins, it really is releasing some badness. And so just, sometimes, we're teachers, we can't afford all the great things in life, but, we do have either paint rollers or wine bottles in our house to give us some relief. And when you're sitting at the computer all day, you need something. That's the end of my talk here.
Awesome. I'm going to turn my camera back on. Thank you so much, Brionnea. I'm going to stop the recording.